So it's been said that the coroner in Kentucky is the only person that can arrest a sheriff, and that's not correct. Um, there's 4 public officials who have arrest powers: the coroner, the jailer, the constables, and the sheriff. Those 4 people have arrest powers. So theoretically, any of those could arrest any of the other ones. They could arrest each other, and I guess it's just whoever puts the handcuffs on the other person first and charges the other person with the crime. Whoever does that first is the person who, is going to get the whole process started. So to review, the Kentucky, I'm doing Civics, Kentucky Civics. So the Kentucky County Judge Executive, the duties of the Judge Executive. So Ken McFarland of Gallatin County, what Ken McFarland has to do, he has to chair over the fiscal court, so the legislative body. He has to sit on the legislative body. He's the executive, so he's the one that will sign off on the legislative agreements. He has veto power. He's the CEO of the county that controls all the administration over activities of all the agencies created by the fiscal court. So the county clerk, he's in charge of basically with all the administrative officials, getting them all in line, getting them all organized. That falls on the county judge's head. He's the face of the county. The county judge is the like the president of the county, because there's 3 divisions of power. There's 3 branches of government. There's judicial, executive, and legislative, and he's the executive, right? So prepares the annual budget every year. The judge executive prepares the annual budget. That's where they control the strings. Those who control the money has power. That's one of the strings of power, the purse strings. That's one way he can wield his influence and power. He also can appoint positions, so he can hire people, he can fire people in his cabinet, in his administration. The budget can be amended by fiscal court before it's sent to the state local finance officer. The county judge, Ken McFarland, is also the county alcoholic beverage administrator, so everything alcohol goes through Ken McFarland. Ken McFarland also appoints all non-elective administrative officers to the county. Numerous statutory county boards and commissions. So fair board, he can dictate who is the head of the fair board, but the school board is its own autonomous unit. It's kind of like family court in a way. It's its own thing, It's like it's its own little thing off to the side. And he can be a member on the various boards and commissions. So they said that the coroner is the only person that has the power to arrest a sheriff. That's not correct, because all the coroners, jailers, constables, and sheriffs all have the authority to make arrest, to put their hands on you, and to stop you from doing what it is that you're doing, throw you in jail if they witness a crime, a misdemeanor, or a felony, or have probable cause that something had happened. So they can all arrest him if the sheriff is breaking the law. I was going to put the coroner on it, but I really thought that between the top 3, it would have been the judge executive, the county attorney, or the sheriff. I think those are the 3 most powerful people in the county. Judge executive, county attorney, and the sheriff. The PBA determines how much taxes you're going to pay. So the PBA in Gallatin County is Ruth Middleton. And actually, I remember telling Ruth Middleton something about how we need to get all the Republicans out of Gallatin County, and she was like this, and she was like, ooh, your dad would, yeah, you're right, him, Middleton, or Ruth Middleton, you're right, the old man would have fucking hit me for any fucking thing I've ever said, because he hates my fucking very guts. Anytime I've ever been annoying to him, he would strike me. He's been hitting me my whole life. 5,000 assaults happened in Gallatin County, and none of the public officials gave a damn. None of them give a shit. So Ruth Middleton, she's going to come at me like she's going to hit me? Yeah, exactly. The culture of Gallatin County is what's fucked up. Okay? So, y'all want to defend child-beating Nazis? That's your prerogative. But y'all ain't doing, y'all didn't do me right. I know that. I know that. So the PVA, Ruth Middleton is the one who determines how much taxes that you're going to pay. So that's your pocketbook. And while some of these guys may have brute force, being able to control your pocketbook is a strong power to have and also. So that's why I thought that the PBA should be put up there. And also the constable, I just thought it was food for thought. But really I think it's between the sheriff, the judge executive, and the county attorney. So they say, well, who's the sheriff's boss? Who does the sheriff have to answer to? Well, the sheriff doesn't have to listen to anybody. Sheriff is, the buck stops with the sheriff. Sheriff is, okay, so you got judicial, executive, and legislation, right? The sheriff starts the judicial branch. So the sheriff makes arrest, he files a complaint, and then all the lawyers and everything has to defend what the sheriff said went. Have to go along with his reports, make convictions. The prosecuting attorney, the county attorney, with the chief prosecuting attorney, he's going to have to prosecute everybody that the sheriff says did a crime. So ultimately, the sheriff has the ultimate law enforcement capabilities of the whole county. So since he's the man on the ground, if there's a fight or a crisis, it's going to be the sheriff that gets in there. Now, I'm hesitant to say that he's the most powerful man in the county because it depends on the relationship between the county attorney, the county judge, and the sheriff. Now, they all have their duties and their responsibilities, but really how they understand the law, how they understand their position, all that plays into effect. So when you have, you know, the way I feel like, I think the county attorney is the most powerful guy in the county of Kentucky County, and I'll tell you why, because since they're the law advisor, they sit on fiscal court, they're the chief law advisor for fiscal court, they're the prosecutor, so they're the ones that has the sheriff's back. Whatever their understanding of the law is what the sheriff and the county judge listens to, and if the sheriff and the county judge are listening to the county attorney, then the county attorney definitely is the most powerful man in the county. Now, that being said, the county judge and the sheriff don't have to go through the county attorney. They could have their own lawyer, they could have their own, you know, process. It's probably easier, though, to just do it as it's statutorily required. The county attorney has to be there at fiscal court, and he's there to prosecute any of the sheriff, so it's best to have like a working relationship with them, not to be so antagonistic. And since it's easy to have, I don't know, to have a working relationship, just, you know, whatever Spike Wright is the county attorney for Gap County, whatever Spike Wright says goes. It's easier to do it that way. So, the county attorney and judge executive, they have strings that they can pull with the sheriff. So, you know, it's kind of like the wag the dog type of thing. While the sheriff makes the arrest and the county attorney has to prosecute it, the county prosecutor can choose not to prosecute certain crimes. If Spike Wright says, no, I'm not going to convict any more seatbelt law convictions. I think the seatbelt law is ridiculous. It's petty. We have bigger issues going on here. We don't need to be harassing people over such a petty offense. And every time, you know, the sheriff brings somebody in with somebody that has a seatbelt law that wants to fight it, nope, he gets thrown out. So that would be one way that the prosecutor, the county attorney has influence with the sheriff. The county judge cannot fund the sheriff's department. The county judge has the purse strings. So the county judge has the purse strings, you know, or they could just vote him to just be a tax collector and just let the county police and different county militia unit be the primary enforcers. So they can just make the sheriff just do the basics of what is it they need to do. The sheriff, the responsibilities of the sheriff is property tax collection, election duties, civil and criminal courts, and school safety. Those are the main things that the sheriff's responsible for. The responsibility of the sheriff is to make sure that, you know, the elections are run well, which is also the county clerk's position, the Tracy Miles. Tracy Miles would be the chairman of the elections committee. Tracy Miles also issues motor vehicle and motor boat licenses and fees, deeds, wills, mortgages, marriages. So county clerk, kind of the general legal business and documentation, the county clerk would handle it. But also the elections. The sheriff and the county clerk are the ones that take care of the elections. The sheriff is also the property tax collector. So the county judge, you know, could choose not to fund the sheriff's department if they don't like what they're doing. They could also raise the county police up and have them be the primary enforcers of the law, circumventing the sheriff's department. The county judge has that authority. County attorney, since he's the attorney that represents fiscal court, he's the one that would defend the judge, executive, or the sheriff if they got sued. So he could be a lackey just covering up the crimes of the judge, executive, and sheriff, or the county attorney could take the lead. So it depends on who's, I guess, the alpha male between those three men. If one of them takes the lead on the other one and one, you know, says no, does it happen? Does it go on? So the county attorney sits on fiscal court. He defends the judge, executive, or the sheriff, or the cops, or anybody else that's on, you know, this elite group that governs Gallatin County. So, the county attorney could be a lackey just covering them up, or the county, like I said, could take the lead. And Spike Wright could say, this is how I want to do some things. And he could define everybody's powers, give them all documents, have like little chalkboard meetings and say, okay, here's your responsibilities, and delegate it very specifically. That could happen, which I think would be a good idea. So that way everybody's on the same page. That way, it's also a good idea for the county attorney to do something like that, so that way everybody's coming to him for any type of legal advice. So assuming somebody complains if a criminal action came from the governing officials, I bet that's how it all unravels. The county attorney is like the king moral opinion maker, okay? He gets to dictate to the judge, executive, and sheriff what they believe is in his best interest of the law. That this doesn't have to be, you could have some sort of trifecta, triumvirate, if you will, where there's 3 folks in charge. All 3 of them could be like having their own little ruling council. You could have independent sheriffs. You could have independent judge executives who have read their own constitution or took classes and understand the law in their own, respectives. And I think that would put you in a better position to defend, the actions if the county attorney was a tyrannical Nazi, which I'm not for sure. They could be, but I'm not for sure how it actually goes down in Gallatin County. So the simple answer, the sheriff answers to the county attorney because that's where he gets his understanding of the law, and the sheriff also answers to the judge executive because that's where he gets his money. So that's who the sheriff has to listen to, the county attorney and the judge executive. The Kentucky County Sheriff's duties are they're the chief law enforcement officer in the county, tax collector. So chief law enforcement officer, they also collect all the taxes. They collect property taxes for the state, for the county, the city, and special districts and deposits and distribute the collected tax funds. The sheriff also collects a fee for collecting taxes. So they collect taxes and they get money for collecting taxes. They also do court services. They serve warrants, subpoenas, and summons for civil and criminal court. They're also the bailiff for the court. So they protect the civil and criminal courts, make sure that there's no outbreak of violence. There's also the election duties that the sheriff and the county clerk, Tracy Miles and Josh Neal, would be involved on in Gallatin County. They serve on the Board of Elections, the sheriff does, and they publish and advertise as special elections. So if there's special elections, the sheriff would be the one that would have to advertise those. The sheriff is disqualified for election duty on years he's a candidate. So when Josh Neal and the ex-sheriff, the old sheriff, when they were running against the old sheriff, he wasn't allowed to be ahead of the election since he was actually running in the elections. Man, why can't I think of his name? But so the duties of the county attorney aids the Commonwealth's attorney in the criminal courts. The Commonwealth's attorney is kind of like the chief prosecutor, in the district, in like several counties. That's the Commonwealth's attorney in the criminal courts. They're also the chief prosecutor in the district court. So in the district court, they're the main people that prosecute whoever the sheriff and the cops are saying are doing illegal stuff. They're the legal advisor for the fiscal court, and they must attend all fiscal court meetings. By law, the fiscal court the county attorney must attend all fiscal court meetings. Legal counsel and advisor for all public officials. So all public officials use Spike Wright as a defense. So all the government officials can go to Spike Wright and say, here's my situation, what should I do? And he is statutorily, legally obligated to handle their situation as best as he thinks it should be handled. For or against them on behalf of official conduct of their respective offices. The PVA, the duties of the PVA, the duties of Ruth Middleton. What Ruth Middleton has to do, she has to make an annual assessment for the ad valorem tax purposes of all real property in the county to be used by public officials all over the state. So she has to make about the property and whether there's houses and the structures and everything else that's going to be taxed within the entire county. She's got to make some sort of document that says what's all can be taxed, all the real property that can be taxed. The city must pay the PVA for uses of this assessment. So when the PVA makes the assessment, then anybody uses the assessment, the city has to pay for it. They used to be called the Office of the County Assessor because they assess the value of the property. So they're also another tax collector. So the PVA, the sheriff, they're both involved in the collection of taxes. And also to be the PVA, you must pass the State Revenue Cabinet's civil service exam. So you have to be qualified to be able to even be in that position by passing a civil service exam that the State Revenue Cabinet puts out. So to make sure that you know what you're doing. So PVA has to pass a civil service exam, which I think is a good idea. It should have a civil service exam for all the positions. To be a citizen, you should have a civil service exam, I think.